Hello again, everybody. I hope you are still well and happy wherever you are. My name's Georgia Byng, and I'm here to read you another chapter from Molly Moon's incredible book of Hypnotism, a book that I wrote. We've got to chapter 16. So here we go. Oh, the piece of art today. Yes, it's this picture by Joe Webb again, and it's called Giant Leap. And this is quite apt, I think, because Molly is about to step out into New York City and see if she can get herself some things sorted out. Chapter 16. It was scary stepping out of the quiet, snazzy hotel into the busy, dirty streets of Manhattan. Hot dogs, onions, bagels, roasted peanuts, coffee, pretzels, burgers, and pickles filled the air with their aromas, and everywhere there was movement of people and of traffic. Molly had never seen such a mixture of people in one place, all colours and all kinds. There were the biggest, fattest people she'd ever seen walking past the thinnest. New Yorkers seemed to dress exactly how they felt without caring what anyone else thought. Molly saw a guy dressed in cowboy chaps swaggering past a huge woman dressed in sparkly pink hot pants. Molly imagined Mrs. Toadley in a pair of them and smiled, and she thought how Miss Addiston could walk down the street here in her snipped-up suit with her knickers on her head, and everyone would just think it was a new fashion. For a moment, Molly felt very small and unsteady, but then a hotel porter appeared beside her in his green and gold uniform. "Cab, ma'am?" Yes, please," said Molly. The porter opened the door to another rattly yellow cab, this time driven by a Mexican-looking guy with a thick black moustache. "Where you want to go, lady?" he said. "Derry Street," said Molly as firmly as possible. She and Petula climbed in, and a different taped voice under her seat said, "Meow! Cats have 9 lives, but you don't, so buckle up." Molly didn't need to be reminded, as this driver drove like a madman. They skidded away from the hotel and turned down one of the main roads that drove south through Manhattan. "Madison Avenue," said a sign, and the Mexican driver slalomed down it as if he was in a computer game, laughing like a lunatic every time he nearly hit another car. Molly gripped the seat and Petula sank her claws into the leather. Above them on either side, enormous skyscrapers shot upwards, great walls of glass and steel. At street level, billowing clouds of steam rose up through the grates in the pavement. Molly looked at the map on the back of her driver's seat. It was a plan of Manhattan, and she saw that although most of the streets were named by number, at the bottom end of the island, the streets had names as in other cities. Indeed, 10 minutes and $13 later, Molly and Petula had arrived in the maze of these streets and been dropped off in one called Derry Street. It was a street full of brownstone buildings, more the size of buildings in Briarsville, although they still had a distinctly city feeling about them. Molly and Petula picked their way along, looking at names on doorbells. At last they came to a polished bronze sign that said, "The Barry Bragg Agency." Molly was relieved that finding Mr. Bragg had been so simple, although it did mean that now there was no putting off meeting him. She straightened her skirt, took a deep breath, and pressed the buzzer. "Hello?" said a squeaky woman's voice down the entry phone. "Can I help?" "I've come to see a Barry Bragg." "Come up to the 5th floor." The door buzzed open. Molly and Petula stepped inside into a dark, mirror-lined lobby that smelt of oranges and vanilla essence. They crossed its shiny stone floor to a small cage lift. Soon they were on the 5th floor. "Good morning," said the receptionist, who looked like a Barbie doll. She cast her black lashed eyes over Molly, registering her scruffy clothes. Then she noticed Petula.
So it's a dog act, is it?"
"No." The receptionist looked in Mr. Bragg's diary.
"I wasn't expecting anyone this morning," she said. "Do you have an appointment?"
"Yes," said Molly, thinking of how she'd made up her mind to see Barry Bragg after watching him on TV. "Yes, I made an appointment with him in person this morning."
"Oh, I see,"
said the receptionist. It didn't cross her tiny mind that Molly might be lying.
"Mr. Bragg will be out in a minute. Please take a seat."
Molly sat down to wait. She and Petula watched fascinated as the secretary took out a makeup box the size of a toolkit and how she spent 10 minutes painting her very pouty lips. "Well, thank you for coming," came Barry Bragg's treacly voice. His arm, clad in the fabric of his purple suit, opened his office door to show some visitors out. A young boy with a bird puppet emerged with his parents. They were all smiling.
"Well, thank you for seeing us," said the mother. Shall I call you?"
"He was fabulous, fabulous, fabulous," said Barry Bragg. "But don't call me. I'll call you. I need a few days."
"Thank you, mister,"
said the boy, and his duck said,
"Thank you, mister."
"Oh, Jimmy, he's unstoppable," said his father proudly. I see, said Barry Bragg, laughing loudly. "Well, goodbye. Keep practicing."
The visitors left. Barry Bragg loosened his pink bow tie and breathed a sigh of relief.
Gee whiz, talk about a tired act.
Then he noticed Molly.
"Come to see me?"
he said, frowning. He looked questioningly at his secretary.
"She said she made an appointment with you in person,"
explained the receptionist, realizing slowly that she'd been duped. Molly nodded, steeling herself for what she was about to do.
No parents?" asked Barry.
"No," said Molly.
"Well, how refreshing," exclaimed Barry Bragg. "I'll tell you, the worst part of this job is the parents, pushy parents. They're the bane of my life. Gee, a kid on its own is welcome. Come in."
This was the first time that having no parents had been to Molly's advantage. "Thank you, Mr. Bragg," she said, as she stepped into his purple and gold office.
"So,"
said Barry Bragg, eyeing Molly's scruffy outfit as he walked around her and sat down at his desk.
"What kind of act you got? Some kind of Cinderella thing? I like the raggy get-up. It's got real authenticity."
He opened a cigar box. As he lifted its lid, it started to sing, "You gotta pick a pocket or two." He picked out a short, fat cigar and bit the end off it, which he spat out behind him, and he picked up a lighter shaped like Charlie Chaplin. A flame came out of Chaplin's hat, and after sucking and puffing cigar smoke into the room, he said,
"Okay, kid, so let's see what you can do."
As the smoke cleared, he turned his blue eyes towards Molly. She was holding a pendulum, which she was swinging slowly backwards and forwards, and her soft voice was saying, "Just look at this."
"Oh, so it's a hypno..."
Barry Bragg tried to finish his sentence but couldn't remember what he was going to say. The pendulum was so beautiful to watch. Its middle was a strangely spinning spiral that drew him towards it.
"That's beautiful."
No word seemed able to leave his mouth, but he didn't mind at all. Molly slowly stopped the pendulum swinging and suggested calmly, "Look into my eyes." That was it. Molly's green eyes zonked Barry within seconds. His eyes glazed over, and Molly set to work. Barry, you are now under my command, and you will do whatever I tell you. Is that understood? Barry nodded. Molly smiled. First thing I want you to do is put out that cigar. Half an hour later, Barry was talking enthusiastically on the phone. I'm telling you, Rixie, she's fabulous. You just got to come and see her. After a quick ride from her apartment, the producer and director of Stars on Mars arrived at the Derry Street office. Her name was Rixie Bloomy, and she was one of New York's hottest personalities. She was 36 years old and was the most expensively dressed woman Molly had ever seen. She wore a black leather trouser suit, zebra skin ankle boots, and carried a matching furry handbag. Her hair was as bouncy as if she had just walked out of a shampoo commercial. Her lips were plump and luscious. They had been pumped up by one of New York's top plastic surgeons, and her eyes were searingly blue. She looked suspiciously at Molly. Well, Barry, I know you bought me Davina, said Rixie Bloomy, but honey, this girl's no, look at her spammy legs. Sweetie, I think you're losing your touch. She's great, she's great, insisted Barry. Even Molly will admit that she's no beauty queen, but don't you see there's something about her? She's magic. Barry Bragg was starting to sweat from excitement. Rixie Bloomy looked astonished. Shall I show you what I can do? Suggested Molly. Within the time it takes to sharpen a couple of pencils. Both Rixie and Barry were gazing glazy-eyed at her. So what I want, Molly instructed, is a part in a big musical or play here in New York. And I want one that pays well. What have you got? Nothing, said Rixie Bloomy, her head swaying. All the plays we're doing have adult parts in them. Molly faltered. There must be some big acting job out there that she could take. She wanted one. More than that, she needed one. She simply had to get some money. Then she saw Davina Nuttall's picture on the wall. Molly was reminded again of Hazel. Davina had the same spiteful glint in her eye. Memories of Hazel being mean fired through Molly's mind. Right then, I'll have Davina Nuttall's part in Stars on Mars, she said. There was a silence. That must be possible. If you say so, said Rixie. Good, said Molly. I'll learn her songs, I'll learn her dances. Oh, and I want my dog in the show. There are no parts for dogs. The show's set on Mars, said Rixie Bloomy. We'll make her a part, said Molly, and design Petula some astronaut outfits. Petula looked at Molly as if she liked this idea. And, continued Molly, I'll need all my bills at my hotel paid for. I want to get paid twice as much as Davina Nuttall. How much will that be? $40,000 a month. Gulped Molly. Yes, well, that is the amount you must pay me. And I want loads of new clothes because, as you can see, mine are a bit shabby. And I'd like a chauffeur-driven car that waits for me at all times. And while you're at it, make that a Rolls Royce. And I want a never-ending supply of sweets. I'll tell you the ones that I like later. And here is something very important. I must meet all the people in the show separately before we start working, and all the people who work behind the scenes, and I really mean all of them. Is that clear? The two New Yorkers nodded. Lastly, I don't want to meet Davina Nuttall. Have you got some other show you can put her in? No. Oh well, never mind. And why do I want all of this? Asked Molly, leaning back in her chair to look proudly at her puppet creations.
Because you are the most talented kid ever to have hit Broadway, sighed Barry.
Because you're pure genius,
nodded Rixie Bloomy. Molly shivered inside. This was going to be a mammoth challenge. She hoped she was up to it. And that is the end of Chapter 16. I hope you enjoyed it. Ooh, I'd love to be able to hypnotise people like Molly can. I wonder how you're getting on with your hypnosis. And if you're going to be doing any today, happy hypnotising. And until we meet again, goodbye.